Because of sin, man cannot live in harmony with God and other created beings anymore. But it's not to stay that way for eternity, for God is love. Because He is love, incomprehensible, He didn't erase the sinner, because sin demands the death penalty. Instead, He lowered Himself and gave humanity an opportunity to change their ways. He offered them a plan according to which the original harmony could be restored. This plan contains demands and conditions to which humanity must surrender, as well as guidance to how this goal can be reached. The Bible calls this plan the gospel. It's also called the everlasting gospel, for it applies to people of all times. Moreover, certain circumstances at certain times required a proclamation beside the gospel which related to present issues and needs. Noah, for instance, preached that the flood would come. The prophet Elijah said, "How long halt ye between two opinions? If the Lord be God, follow him, but if Baal, then follow him." John the Baptist prepared the people for the coming of the Messiah. The message of Paul the Apostle was to prove that this Jesus of Nazareth was the promised Messiah. Dr. Martin Luther spoke against the preposterous practices of buying God's grace. What about now? Which special message is there for our time? What is of importance right now? We find the answer in the book of Revelation, chapter 14. We are being introduced to three angels with the assignment to give a last warning and also encouragement to the inhabitants of the earth. This article deals with the first angel. It is the angel who is responsible for the distribution of the everlasting gospel, that is, for the plan of restoration and deliverance. Verse 6 describes this. "And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation, and kindred, and tongue, and people." In verse 7, this angel emphasizes an additional message of the utmost importance for our time period. Let's read verse 7. "Saying with a loud voice, Fear God, and give glory to Him, for the hour of His judgment is come, and worship Him that made heaven and earth, and the sea, and the fountains of waters." The gospel is not a new message, neither is the request to fear God and give glory to Him. Why then does the loud voice of the angel sound so serious? And what does it mean to fear God? In the book of Joshua, chapter 24, verse 14, we find the explanation. "Now therefore fear the Lord, and serve Him in sincerity and in truth. And now fear ye Jehovah, and serve Him in perfection and in truth. Now therefore fear Jehovah, and serve Him in sincerity and in truth." King Solomon expressed it like this. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. "Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man." In short, fear God by obeying what He says. Why is it so important just now? The angel says, "For the hour of His judgment is come." Fine, but when did the hour of His judgment come? Well, the Bible explains itself. The prophetic book of Daniel and the book of Revelation complement each other. The book of Daniel also speaks of a judgment in session. The judgment was set and the books were opened. Furthermore, we are being told when this judgment begins. unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. A day in prophecy equals 1 year. The starting point of the chain of events can be found in Daniel 9:25. That from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem. This is in the year 457 BC. And it takes us to the year 1844 AD. This information I'm just giving you briefly. It is amazing that these prophecies of Daniel were being studied in the 30s and 40s of the 18th century worldwide, independent from each other. Studying the prophecies caused an awakening of the people to a new spiritual life. The interest in divine matters was renewed. Many explored their heart, the reasons, thoughts and feelings that drove them to action. Wrongs were made right, if possible debts were paid. The year 1844 became a very important milestone in human history. But the other side noticed that too, and with great success the faith in God was shaken. Charles Darwin, who stepped onto the stage of world's history at the time, changed through his work. Theory of natural selection, the world view of the people, and merely questioned story of creation completely. The basis of today's doctrine of evolution was born. Not only did atheists happily adopt this theory, but later people began to claim that God had caused the big plan. The rest, like the origin of all things, would have been caused by evolution. A new doctrine was born, called the theistic evolution. It is widely accepted by many Christians today. Fighting this doctrine is what the first angel is doing in Revelation chapter 14 and verse 7. I recommend that you watch Walter Weit's lectures on YouTube dealing with creation and evolution.
Also Darwin schaut sich die Welt an.
Darwin looks at the world. He sees the misery and suffering. He sees death. He sees parasites that suck other organisms. That is not in agreement with a God of love. This way, the evolutionary thoughts started to develop in his thoughts. And these same thoughts leave a mark on the world today. So we see that the first angel's task is to rekindle the interest in divine affairs. He directs the shallow or even lost attention towards God back to him. He wants us to recognize how far forward the clock of man's history has moved by rekindling the study of biblical prophecy. It's very interesting how often the Bible speaks of the time of the end. You may want to search for expressions like end of days, time of the end, or end of time. You should try to find out what these Bible texts are dealing with. It's exciting. Moreover, this angel shows that nothing and nobody exist by accident, but that your existence is due to an intelligent designer. To him, the Almighty God, we owe our gratitude, which we can express by loving him, by communing with him in prayer and contemplation, by trusting in him in all situations in our life, and by doing what he commands, by regarding his creation as his property, and by treating nature, animals, and of course other people responsibly and with circumspection, even ourselves, our body and spirit. We recognize as his property, and we will therefore keep ourselves in the best healthy condition. That's what it means to fear God and how we can stand in the judgment.